Let's turn today to Matthew's Gospel, chapter 24 and verse 37, continuing our study in the signs that Jesus gave in relation to his second coming. We read here, Jesus said, "The coming of the Son of Man will be just like the days of Noah. For in those days, which were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, they were marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. And they did not understand until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be." We know what happened in the days of Noah. People were particularly evil in the realm of sex and violence. These were the two predominant areas where sin flourished openly, as we read in Genesis chapter 6. And in the last days before the coming of Christ, it will be exactly like that. There will be open sexual evil and an increase in violence. And we see that happening in our day and age, along with all the other signs that we have considered in this chapter. But we also know that in the days of Noah, there was a godly remnant headed up by Noah. It wasn't a very large number. In fact, it was only 8 people. It consisted just of Noah's immediate family, his 3 sons, their wives, and his own wife. Just 8 people. And as far as we know, God gave Noah 120 years to preach to others and to prepare the ark. He gave them ample opportunity to repent. 2 Peter 2 says Noah was a preacher of righteousness. He did not lower that standard of righteousness. And there is a great need in the last days for people like Noah who do not lower the standard of righteousness. Noah didn't lower the standard of righteousness. He kept it where God kept it. And the result was that very few people were willing to join that little remnant that stood for God. And it will be like that in the last days too. The way to life is narrow, and few there be that find it. And if we proclaim the narrow gate as narrow as Jesus said it was, and if we proclaim the narrow way as narrow as Jesus said it was, we shall find that there are very few who really join us and want to become a part of it. And this is where the temptation comes for many preachers to be ticklers of people's ears and to make the gate wider than what Jesus made it, to make the way broader than what Jesus made it, so that many more people can come in. But these many who come in will not be people who want righteousness. They are people who want heaven, of course, when they die. Any sensible person would want that. Even Balaam said, "Let me die the death of the righteous." But you've got to live the life of the righteous in order to die the death of the righteous. Few there be that find that true way. The counterfeit ways are many. And so there will be a need, and there is a need in our day for people like Noah to stand for the truth, to preach righteousness, and to be content with a small number of people who stand with them for righteousness. And around us in the world, it will be just like in the days of Noah, with sexual evil and violence and many other sins like that. And we have to warn people about the coming judgment against sin. But like in Noah's day, most people laughed at Noah's preaching. Most people will laugh and ridicule what we say. They would say, "That's impossible, that God can save only a few." Well, that's what they told Noah too. But Noah did not bother about them. He did not change his message to suit any of their opinions. Neither should we. And one day, the judgment came. All of a sudden. The warning was through the preaching of Noah. They didn't listen to that. And one day God said, "The time is up." And Noah was taken up, taken into the ark, and the judgment fell. And that was the end of that world. And Jesus said it'll be like that in the last days too, that the judgment of God will fall upon the earth, and God's people will be taken up to escape that judgment of God. In that time, there will be 2 men in the field, verse 40, working together. One will be taken to escape that judgment. Another will be left behind and will face that judgment. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken to escape that judgment. The other will be left behind to face the judgment and the wrath of God. It will only be a short period in which the wrath of God falls upon this earth. Just immediately after the saints are raptured up, after Jesus has come in the air, like the lightning from the east to the west flashes, and then that will be the end of this dispensation of this world, and then Jesus will come with his saints from heaven to establish his kingdom on the earth. What shall we do then, after having heard all these things that Jesus has said? What did Jesus say to his disciples? Did he tell them to be careful to understand prophecy more accurately? No. He said, be on the alert. It is spiritual alertness that is more necessary for us to be ready for the coming of the Lord than intellectual understanding of prophetic truth. An intellectual understanding of prophetic truth can stimulate our souls, but not necessarily edify or build up our spirits, not necessarily prepare us for the coming of the Lord. Satan knows all the prophetic details about the coming of Jesus Christ, but that's not going to take him into the Lord's presence. He's still going to be cast into that lake of fire. We read in 1 John chapter 3, verse 2 and 3, that we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, because we shall see him just as he is. And if you have this hope, John says in 1 John 3:3, you will purify yourself as he is pure. This is the mark of all those who have this hope as a living hope, that they purify themselves as Jesus is pure. And so we see here, be on the alert, he said, because you do not know at what hour, what day your Lord is coming. But, he said, be sure of this, if the head of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have been on the alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. For this reason, you be ready too. For the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. We may think that it is still a long time and take it easy in our life, and he will come when we are not ready. But the one who is always ready, the one who is purifying himself as Jesus is pure, for him the coming of the Lord will not be like a thief. He said here that if the head of the house had known what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have been on the alert. And we know, we do not know the exact day or hour, but we know when it is near. And even if his coming is not immediate, every Christian must seek to purify himself, even as Jesus is pure. In relation to the second coming of Christ, Paul wrote to the Thessalonians in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and said, you brethren, verse 4, are not in darkness. Earlier on in verse 2 he said, you know full well that the day of the Lord will come just like a thief in the night. While they are saying peace and safety, then destruction will come upon them suddenly, like birth pangs upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you like a thief. Why should it overtake you like a thief? If you are ready for his coming, then it will not surprise you when he comes. You are all sons of light and sons of day. Therefore, let us not go to sleep spiritually as others do. And that is the point of the parable of the 10 virgins. To be spiritually alert with oil in our vessels. That is the meaning of spiritual alertness. That we have a life before God in our hidden part. Be on the alert, and then his coming will never surprise you, even though it will be sudden, when people are saying peace and safety, and that's what many people in the world are saying today. And that is what the Antichrist will also say, peace and safety. But he will come suddenly upon them. But those who are ready for the coming of the Lord, they will not be surprised. For them it will not be like a thief coming in the night. And then Jesus went on to say, in Matthew 24 and verse 45, who then is that faithful and sensible servant, whom his master will put in charge of his household to give them their food at the proper time? The Lord wants servants in these days who will give food to his household. There are many believers around the world, and they need shepherds. They need teachers. not those who serve for money, not those who are seeking their own honor, but those who want to give food to the household of God. Blessed is that slave whom his father finds so doing when he comes. If God has given you a gift with his word, you have a tremendous responsibility to be a servant who gives food at the proper time according to the need of God's household, and that you will be found doing that and not having buried your talent, or having used your talent to make money for yourself, or having used your talent to get honor for yourself, but that you have used it to give food to God's people. When the Lord comes, he will put you in charge, verse 47, of all his possessions. You will get an abundant reward from him. But, he says, if that evil slave says, my master is not coming for a long time, and instead of feeding his fellow slaves, he beats them. And there are many preachers like that. They do not feed, they beat with their messages. And they live a sensuous, self-centered life, eating and drinking in gluttony, enjoying themselves instead of being concerned about feeding God's people. Then the master of that slave will come on a day when he doesn't expect him. He will come suddenly, and he will cut him in pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. Here is a person who was a servant of the master, but he was cast out because he took it easy. He was not alert. God gave him a responsibility, and he didn't take it seriously. It's a serious thing, dear friends, to have had a gift from God. It increases our responsibility. May we all be found faithful.